Okay, today we're doing an oil change on a 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix with a 3.8 liter Series 2 V6. And to do that, number one, we're going to open up the hood, take a look underneath. Okay, so our key players here, we have our orange oil fill right here. We have our oil dipstick here, which would show that we've got pretty dirty oil in this car. It's been about 5,000 miles since its last oil change. And then over here on the side here, if you see that little blue thing hanging out, it's actually a PF47 oil filter. That's what we're going to be changing, but we're also going to be replacing it. We're going to be upgrading it with a PF52, which is a little bit longer. Same size, but common upgrade for these engines. Okay, it is possible to change the oil on these cars with it on the ground, but you've got to kind of be slim. Our oil drain bolt's a little bit toward the center of the car on the front pan here. The back pan's the transmission pan. Our bolt's right here. Put your wrench on it, break it a little bit, and then work its way out. Eventually, as it gets finger loose, then you'll want to do it by hand, and we'll let all the oil drip into the pan. And we've set up underneath. We're using a trash bag underneath it, just to make sure if we do have a little bit of a spill, it's not going to go anywhere, and at the end of the job we can just throw it away. It's easy just to push up against the bolt until you feel it bump against the threads. Then you know it's loose and you can just remove it. Set it aside for now. We're going to direct our attention towards the oil filter. Alright, now the oil filter's here now. It's convenient that it's actually set up and down in this Grand Prix. So we can actually, we just have our bag underneath us here. We're not going to drip too much oil, so it should be able to catch most of it. We're just going to go ahead and take it off. Remembering, try to keep it up and down so we don't spill too much oil. Should not be that tight. Okay, we're going to be using a 5-quart container of oil. This happens to be Mobil 1, and the viscosity that you need. In this case, we're using a 5W30, although in this car, a 10W30 would also work well. But what we're going to do now is we're going to pre-fill our oil filter, since it is primarily up and down. We're going to fill it with oil, and we're also going to get the ring wet with a little bit of oil so it'll go on easy. I usually just cut a little hole in it originally. That way I can control pretty much how much oil comes out of it at one time. Okay, before you put the new oil filter on, you just want to wipe off around the rim here. Just to make sure there's no material there. That's a nice smooth metal surface. Then hand start it. Once the oil filter makes contact, we'll use our wrench and we'll give it approximately 3/4 of an additional turn. So we start with the frame, and we'll move it over about 3/4 of the way there. She's all set. Okay, now that we have the oil filter changed, we're going to take our oil drain plug here and we're going to wipe it down to make sure it's nice and clean. So we've got a good sealing surface. It is a little dirty under here, and in this case we'll just have to use our fingers to make sure it's nice and smooth, and it is. Then we take our bolt and hand thread it back into the hole without trying not to drop it into the oil pan, our oil drain collector. Once we get it on there kind of a little bit, we can move our oil pan out of the way a little bit, get our wrench, which is a little soaked in oil, and we can go ahead and put it back on there. You don't want to put it on Superman tight. It is just a drain plug, so it's just plugging a hole. You want to put it on tight enough that it doesn't leak and that it's not going to back itself out. It'll make contact, it stops moving, we'll give it just a little bit of a nudge, and we're good. Take the rag, wipe off any oil that may be here. Then we're going to pull all of this out with our dirty oil filter and our oil here, trying not to get any on the ground. Now that we have the oil out, we're going to put our fresh oil in. A car like this takes about 4.5 quarts. This is a 5-quart jug. So we're gonna ballpark it and see just about how much we can get in. Now if you're scared of spilling it all over the place, you can use a funnel. Or if you want, you can also just squeeze some rags in around the hole here, and that'll catch any oil that you drip until you get it back on course. We're going to check our oil level just to see that we have some in here. We're going to wipe off this old one because it probably has old oil on it. And it says that we're in the middle of operating range, so we're going to go ahead and start the car, and that's going to complete putting oil in the filter, and we'll check it one more time just to be safe. Now that it's run one more time, we've filled the oil filter. We'll wipe off our stick so it's nice and dry. Put it back in. Pull it out. And we're right where we need to be. We can probably put in a little bit more, so I'll top it off a little bit. But we've changed the oil in our 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix with a 3800 Series 2V6.